Hey everyone, I just wanted to take a minute to say hi, and I hope everyone out there is doing well. I know that there's some complex situations and everybody's trying to navigate some really interesting times, but I just want to say before we dive into this piece, which is sort of like a fun draw this in your style about washing your hands and everything, I just wanted to take a minute to say thanks for all the support. I hope you guys are enjoying the 3 videos last week. We're going to do 3 videos this week as well, and I hope that even though we're all cooped up, that you guys are finding good ways to sort of get by and that you're not too stressed out and everything's good. And I hope that we get through this, we all come out the other side and can get back to normal. So thanks for watching, and let's get started on this next video. Thanks. Hey everyone, I'm Mike Henry, and this is my Procreate demo for the piece I call Wash Your Hands. So this was originally a Draw This in Your Style from Kat Hudson. Here's her Instagram handle below. Please go check it out. That right there is the original image. It looked like a lot of fun and had a great message, so I figured let's do my own version of it, because lately I've had time to do more Draw This in Your Style, so I wanted to pitch in on this one. So here you can see I decide pretty early that I'm going to try and mimic natural medium. The original illustration is fairly simple, which is one of the reasons why I took it on. I knew I could have fun with it, but it wouldn't be really time consuming. So then I was like, well, how am I going to find something interesting in this for myself aside from just interpreting the character in a certain way? And I thought it'd be fun to make it look like it was almost like drawn on an art card or something, that it's not digital. So you can see here I start by just doing a super rough, trying to get the vibe, exactly what am I trying to pull off here, and then I go into a slightly cleaner line, but I'm trying to mimic pencil now. I'm not trying to make it look like a digital drawing. So I go with a lighter gray and I start drawing in, not really trying to, I'm not like overdoing it with the pencil effect on this, because I knew the whole thing was going to be colored and that would get kind of knocked back, but I am just trying to move quickly through it and not really stop to correct mistakes or anything like that. I'm just trying to, for the most part, knock it out quickly. One of the things that I'll emphasize when we get to the later part where I actually break down natural medium break down my attempt at trying to make it look like a natural medium, is just embracing mistakes when the medium doesn't allow for mistakes to really be. You can see here that the inking goes really fast because I'm not building up lines. I'm actually just pulling the line and then whatever the shape is what I'm letting it be. So this is different than what you normally see me do when I'm doing lines, where I actually build up the line, especially if you've ever watched the sort of lengthy line process on a Village Corrupted piece. That's how those are done. This is more just one stroke. Each line you see there is one stroke. Now I'm colorizing some of the lines in order to kind of match the original look, as well as to lighten the piece a little bit. Now we've gone in with the watercolor, and we're just throwing watercolor all around, trying to make it look natural, but also erasing away and taking advantage of some of the digital aspects of this. Now the lips and the background are pink. The blush is pink. The blue that I will use for the bubbles obviously is blue. In fact, it's the same blue as the lines with its opacity adjusted. And then the white shines that you see throughout the whole thing are put on top of everything, and then given a little bit of a drop shadow, which I'll kind of show in a minute when I do the real medium breakdown. But that is the way of trying to make it look like it's sitting on top of everything else and that it's not absorbing in. And then towards the end, I decide to give everything that's white basically, except for that paint, quote unquote, gets a yellow tint. That's for two reasons. One is it just gives the whole piece a slightly more interesting vibe, at least if you ask me. And then it makes the white shine that I put on things stand out just a little bit more. You can now see that all the bubbles have a little white shine, and her eye does, and they've all got a little bit of a drop shadow to them as well. Lastly, we go in for some lettering, which is just trying to find the right brush and the right setup that I want to do. I hate my own handwriting, so whenever I have to write, I try to focus really hard on getting it exactly how I want it. You can see I've also got that little white rim around the letters, but I end up killing it because it just looks too digital. It looks like I had to do something digitally to get that precision, because I don't think that precision would have been there if this was a natural medium. So I turn it off again, get some little smears in there, and guess what? We're already done. This is a super fast piece because all of these elements are just like one and done instead of something that we have to grind out, something like a rendered paint or like really detailed lines kind of thing. So this one is done, but I knew this was going to be kind of a quick video because I knew overall this was a fairly simple one to bang out. So I want to do this real medium breakdown for you. So let's go ahead and jump into that video and sort of with some little tips and tricks on how to make it look like everything is physical. Now, to get this natural medium look, I think the most important thing is to just think about what the actual components of the natural medium are. So just so that we don't get too crazy, because I don't have time to sort of build like an entire lesson around this, let's just talk about sort of like the main components of the look and feel of something. So I would say that if we're talking about natural medium, we essentially have, let's call it three things. I'm literally making this up as I go, so maybe this will be good, maybe this will be crazy. Let's see. One, I'm going to call it the limitations of the medium. Two, I'm going to say the medium that gets applied specifically. So let's just call it the medium, although what I specifically mean there is it ink, is it paint, is it whatever. And then three, let's just call it the surface. So these are the three, I can't even count. That's why I'm in art. But these are the three, let's say, main things that I try to think about when I'm trying to make something look like it is on real media, I should say. So let's actually skip limitations for now and just think about the medium and the surface. In the case of what I did for this piece, I used three things that are trying to replicate what's being applied. So let's go here to the Fat Pencil 2020. So we've got the Fat Pencil. Now, of course, I didn't do it at that size, but let's just highlight it for a second. I did the rough ink, which looks like that. And then I did the watercolor, which, let's get it big, looks like that. Now, obviously the watercolor is the one that has like the most like, ooh, that looks like paint, which is of course a major part of the look and feel. But all three of these really, when you bring them together, give the look that you're going for. Like, you need to focus on the differences between these and what you're trying to highlight. So in the piece that I actually did, let's just do it without any extra support right now. Let's look at the pencil first. So what color is a pencil? Well, if you're looking at sort of like a generic pencil, it's not black, it's like a really dark gray. So let's go to the Fat Pencil. And the Fat Pencil, the pencil, I just should say in general, on a canvas this size, it's not going to be like that big, especially if you're using it, if you're trying to mimic the idea of a rough sketch and then ink. So it's going to be more like that. In fact, it could even be lighter than that, but for now, let's just say it's that. So I'm going to just, I don't know, I'm going to doodle some bullshit. Like, this is not supposed to be good, but it's also trying to mimic the idea of a rough sketch, so it might not be good anyways, right? So let's just get a guy who's got like, he's a robot guy. Well, I mean, I'm not gonna make him an actual robot. Actually, yeah, fuck it. Let's make him a robot guy. He's got some robot stuff happening. Okay, robot guy. Let's give him a hinge jaw or something. Okay, anyways, we've already gone further than we need to in order to communicate where I'm going with this. Next, let's lighten that like we were talking about doing a second ago. That's starting to feel a little bit more like pencil, but let's lighten it even more because the idea is that this is like a sketch, right? So we want it to be really pale. Well, it'd be paler. It'd probably be more like that if we were doing an actual sketch, but let's just, for the sake of this, let's call that good. The next thing that we did was we inked it. So you ink with black. You can also adjust the opacity of this, but we'll get to that in a second. When we're inking, we also want to think about the limitations of the brush itself. This is not the right brush. There we go, rough ink. We want to think about the limitations. So for instance, do we do this line like 100 times until we've got it correct? Or do we occasionally just kind of let this accident right there stay? Let's do that. Let's also now think about this like we're using a pen. How would you actually structure some of these lines? Where would the heavy be? When would you press really lightly and then press really hard in order to try and get the dimension out of the brush that you're looking for? Like, you can do this in a way that if you're classically trained, you know kind of what these things feel like. But if you're not, you may have to look at reference and understand when things should be thin and when things should be thick and try to mimic that. I'm going to just keep going here for a bit so we can emphasize that. That was too much. So we can emphasize the darkness on the underside here. Because when we're choosing to use this pen like this, we're sort of saying we want this to feel like a pen drawing would, or a brush even. Now, you've also got some areas where there's overlap, which if we zoom in really closely, you can see right there. You've got this part where the line was drawn, this part where it was filled, but then as you can see when I paint back over this, it overlaps and it gets darker and darker, just like a pen would. So part of this is the brush as well. We're trying to use a brush that will mimic some of these effects. By the way, I'm not going to go into brush creation right now. You can either find brushes online. There are plenty of people who sell them. Also linked below, like in all my videos, is my brush pack, which is free. Just download that and enjoy it. So here we go. I'm just kind of getting this guy to where he's feeling a little bit done. Just in real time. See right there, I made a mistake. I'm going to leave it because I want to try and communicate some of the imperfections. Let's do something like that just to make him. I'm trying to stick to these design elements that we've created for ourselves. Okay, let's just, oh wait, this ear. I'm not gonna do an ear. We'll do some more shit like this. I mean, this is just completely half-assing it, but whatever. You get the picture. Now we've got the guy. So does the pencil look like pencil? Yes, it looks like pencil. Doesn't look as light as it could or should. I don't know. I'm not really gonna say that right now. I'm not gonna say it one way or the other, but you can see now what we've done is we've used the pencil layer and the ink layer to just really try to sell that this is a natural medium. Let's zoom in here. You can see there's some messiness. You can see that it's not entirely precise. You can see that there's overlap in the ink. You can see that the pencil's there. So we're really trying to sell the limitation. Now we're back to the stressing limitation. And let's turn that back on again. We're trying to stress the limitations of the medium. We could erase some of that pencil, but let's just say we won't right now. We could also pretend to erase it, like we could like fake erasing, but we're not going to do that right now. You also have the medium, the limitation of the medium. So we're saying, like, for instance, the ink doesn't erase when we make a mistake, we leave it. The thick and the thin, are we respecting it and trying to mimic it like it would be in real life? And last but not least, let's go ahead and put in a layer. I'm not going to go black on this. Let's go with like a desaturated blue and switch to our watercolor. And now the watercolor, there are limitations in the sense that if you go like that, you're outside the line, right? I do occasionally bring some control in when I'm doing the watercolor. I don't want to entirely have it go crazy on me, and that's because I want to get this. I want to get this sort of like blotchy, watery, sort of banged in there kind of that watercolor does, without worrying about the edges. And then I'll go in later with some sort of a eraser of various type and I'll erase. But then occasionally I'll make sure I'm leaving that error in there that has to happen. It doesn't have to happen. I mean, there are insanely precise watercolor artists. I'm not saying that watercolor can't be precise. I'm just trying to I'm trying to hit what people think of when they think of watercolor. Okay, so let's call that good. And I will even really quickly go in with an eraser for the watercolor, make it big, and just kind of pull back, switch to the smudge on the watercolor, and just kind of get it to smudge out like that. Just a little bit. Cool. That feels pretty good. Okay, so what do we got? We've got some watercolor, we've got the ink, we've got the pencil. What's something else that could happen here? Well, something that could happen is maybe you put a little bit too much watercolor down and you've messed up your ink. So let's go in here and find like, oh, actually I put the watercolor kind of heavy at the top here. What happens if we just kind of do this? Because maybe it got a little too wet there. Maybe I made a huge mistake in that one area. And then maybe I want to do the same thing down here. This got just a little messed up. There we go. And fuck it, let's do just a little more right. Actually, I'm going to undo that. This is too much. There we go. A little bit like that, something like that. So now we're starting to actually deliberately bring in errors to try and communicate the look and feel of the thing. Something else that we did in the piece that I like to do is I like to go on top and use like, let's say the turpentine brush, though it doesn't have to, actually let's not make it the turpentine brush, let's make it the fat pencil brush. And I'm going to create something that is on top of everything. It's not actually soaking in or becoming part of the paper, it is sitting on top. So let's do that. So we're going to put it on top and it's going to be like pure. The color is going to be pure. It's not going to be mingling with any other layers. It's just going to sit on top completely bold like that. And then we could even do maybe a little bit of that with, let's do a white as well on parts just to try and really emphasize the idea of this. Something, I don't know, like that. I'm completely bullshitting at this point. And then what I do, and I did it in this piece, is I don't like it where it's covering the ink on this particular part. Let me clear this. Okay, I'll duplicate it. I'm going to do it with both of these, but I don't think it's going to show up on the yellow because of the because it's surrounded by black. I'm going to take the brightness all the way down to 0. In theory, there we go. And move it underneath. And then I'm going to nudge it just a little bit by tapping outside the boundary box. So we're creating like the smallest drop shadow. And then we lower the opacity on that just a little bit. And now you can see it gives the illusion that that is sitting on top. And the absolute last step is, or not the absolute last step, but the last step in this case, in order to try and sell this as a natural medium, is the surface. So you can see here in my list, we've got surface. Oof. We've got surface as one of our things that we're saying is important. So the surface is a texture. It's basically a texture to try and mimic the surface that this is drawn on. So you got to get yourself a texture. Just take a picture of whatever texture you want. Boop. This is just from the guest bed that doesn't have any sheets on it that's next to me right now because I'm in this temporary working space. This isn't the best example. I just kind of wanted to show that like you can literally just go take a photo of something. I have it set to multiply, and the opacity is reduced because that's full and that's reduced. Put it on top and turn on your layers. Boop. Now the one thing is, remember we wanted those that certain layers to be floating on top, so we moved the texture underneath that. So let's zoom in here. Does it look like it's drawn on here? Well, probably not, because this is probably too low of a frequency for the texture to make it like work really well. If we were to make it smaller like this and just to try and like communicate what we're trying to do here. I'm just nudging it if you're wondering what's happening here. Okay. And let's lower that opacity a little more. Perfect. Okay. This is better. Still not great, but this is better. Making it look more like it is on a surface. I would say you can go way further with this if you want to. It's absolutely possible to go further with this. In fact, I did a few pieces in the past where I will, like here, let's go to this pencil layer. Let's go to black just to keep it simple. And in here, you can even go to like, where is it? It's in sketching, I believe. Yeah, we've got this shading, this graphite shading, and you can just come in here and put like a little bit. Here, I'm going to turn off this texture for now so you can see what I'm doing. And what you're doing is you're kind of mimicking, I know what it's supposed to be for shading, but the way I look at it is you're kind of mimicking that you smeared it a little, like you smeared the graphite just a touch, and so you've made the paper messier. And then you can even take it a little further, and you can put in, like you erased at one point, and you've got little specks here and there. So when we zoom in on this, well, that's a bit much. That just looks like hair. But if we do something like that, it creates this. We're starting to sell more and more and more that there is a natural medium here, and that there's errors, and that there's physical debris on the page. So that is a way that I think about natural media, sorry, and I think that really it's less about having the exact tools and more about having the mindset, more about observing what is the actual medium that you're trying to replicate and what is it that you can do in order to just make that work as much as possible. Now, I do think that this needs the texture, but not this texture. It needs a better texture. It needs like we're trying to sell watercolor, so it needs like a watercolor paper texture. There, like that. That's a better watercolor look for the whole thing. So the right texture, of course, can help you, but I just sort of wanted to show you that, like, feel free to take photos. Feel free to just take a picture of something that you need and stick it in to your illustration. So I hope this helped. I think that it probably shows that it's more about experimenting and observation than it is about just having sort of like a brush pack or whatever. Brush packs can certainly help you, but there's a lot about you having to mimic it correctly in order to truly pull it off. And so that's the last piece. I want to thank Kat for her original inspiration for the Draw This in Your Style, and it was a lot of fun. So yeah, thanks for doing that. And thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps out, and I'll see you on the next one. And if you're looking for me on the internet, these are the places where you can find me.